Hi guys, and welcome to A Dog's Soul. Today we're going to talk about how to train your fearful dog using positive reinforcement training. I'm Anita, I'm a professional dog trainer. I show you how to build a trusting relationship with your dog to overcome fear and reactivity and have a good time together again. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, stay tuned and have fun. Okay, so positive reinforcement has one big advantage, especially for fearful dogs. It gives the dog a positive feeling during training, but only if we follow some rules. The first rule, and that's very, very important, do not lure your dog towards something scary. That's done very, very often, and sometimes we don't recognize what we are doing as luring because it's not with a treat, but we can lure in very different ways, and it brings the dog into a conflict. He is scared of whatever we are trying to get him towards, but he wants whatever is there. That makes a conflict in the dog, and that is not a nice way to feel. So we should avoid that. And how can it look like? It can be, of course, a treat. Sometimes what's done is a treat street. So a trail of treats leading to something scary. Or there is a treat put in front of the dog's nose and pulled away towards the scary thing. That is actually the worst thing, because the dog is offered something and then it's taken away again. And this is triggering frustration in combination with the conflict that's arising in the dog. But it can also look like, hey, look, this is not scary at all. I'm going over there and touching it. This is also a very common thing to do. So we are trying to show the dog that whatever is scary for him is not scary for us. And we go over there and we touch the thing so that the dog doesn't feel afraid. But again, this creates a conflict in the dog. Also because his caregiver and social partner is bringing him or herself closer to the danger and away from him. So this makes the whole situation even more scary. The tricky part is that all of these techniques work very often, especially when we have very brave dogs. Still, a more gentle way or a way to avoid the conflict in the dog would be to mark the dog walking towards whatever is scary or looking towards it in the beginning, and then the treat is used to increase distance. So this is like the dog walks towards a trash can he finds scary, and he looks at it, and we see, okay, he's scared, but he looks at it, so we mark and we invite him to take a few steps away from it and throw a treat in the direction away from the trash can. And this way, we have very often a dog that is getting curious because this is something we obviously like. Otherwise, we wouldn't treat him for looking or engaging with it. And with continuing to offer him to increase distance again, we provide him with a way out if it gets too much. And that gives a dog the opportunity to become brave in the first place and check it out. this is something that works very, very fast. So this is how I like to introduce objects, and it can be any object. It can be a car when the dog is scared of car rides. It can be, again, trash cans or things in the environment that are just scary for the dog because he has never encountered such a thing, or it's just a spooky period or a different time of the day and suddenly this thing looks completely different for the dog, or he realizes for the first time that it's there. So there are a bunch of reasons why our dogs can be scared of things. It's also a nice way of dealing with fear of people or other dogs. And this normally doesn't work as fast because a person or another dog or another animal actually moves and behaves on his or her own. And this is where it can get scary again for our dog. And that's why it's even more important to always provide a way out, always provide the opportunity for increasing distance. And here we can also invite the dog to show us some alternative behavior. So we can ask the dog for some kind of behavior that will make the situation more easy for him. That can be anything. It's always depending on what the dog has already learned, what he likes to do, and what fits the situation. It can be, for example, a nose target at my hand, and we walk in a curve past the other dog. That can be we sit down and the other dog walks past us when the distance is big enough, or if the dog's fine with that. It can also be get behind me or get behind my legs or get between my legs, and we stand still or we walk past, whatever is more easy for the dog. So this can look like anything. It's completely individual. All right? And when the dog is afraid of us, we can also use the technique with giving a treat and increasing distance. But this time, not the dog moves away, we do. So the subject of the fear, so the thing the dog is afraid of, or person in that case, moves away from the dog whenever he does something we like. And this can be, again, anything. And in the beginning, when we have a very, very scared dog who is just hiding under something, we can just approach, not too close, lose some traits, use a marker signal. We can use a marker signal for that as well. So we approach some distance away still, use a marker signal, lose some traits, and move away. And it doesn't matter if the dog comes out immediately to eat the treats, he will smell it. He can just take his time, come out at night, or whenever he feels comfortable to check out what we left him earlier. But again, this is a more severe case. Most of the time, we don't have dogs who are as severely afraid of us as in this scenario. If we can interact with the dog, but the dog is scared whenever we do specific things, like coming up with a brush or with a nail clipper or with a harness, those are very common things the dogs are afraid of because they have made negative associations with it, or because they have never seen it, or because we are behaving weird. Right? Sometimes we are tense when we know we have to do things to our dogs. Like, I really hate nail clipping. I am so scared to cut into something painful for the dog that I actually don't like to do it. I like to use a grinder or a board with sandpaper on it where the dog can shorten his own nails, because that way there is less chance of hurting him. Or I let my vet do it because she is actually great at it, and whenever I am at the vet's office, we check the nails as well, and if they are too long, she cuts them. I am very blessed with a dog who doesn't have too long nails very often. So, alright, but when we see that this is happening, we are actually afraid of what we are doing, we should change what we are doing. We should change into something that is more comfortable for us, because our dogs will know. They are so observant that they will know that we are not comfortable and something's up. So this actually can increase their fear. But sometimes it's just that we approach with things they are not familiar with or they are afraid of. And that's when, again, we can use positive reinforcement and distance. So, again, we show the thing, we mark and reward, and if the dog is scared of the thing, we can throw the treat away from the thing and increase distance that way. And whenever we are as far as being able to touch the dog with the thing, we can use a cooperation signal. So the dog learns that whenever he shows a specific behavior, we are working on him, but he can stop what we are doing anytime whenever he stops the behavior. So, for example, the dog puts his chin on a cloth that is placed somewhere. And as long as the chin is on the cloth, we can do whatever we are doing. And as soon as the dog lifts the chin up, we stop. And of course, he gets treats for participating, and we can also reward for him stopping the behavior, because if he, again, does it only for the treats and he is actually uncomfortable, but he doesn't want to stop because he wants the treats, he is in a conflict again. So this is why we can reward from time to time for stopping the behavior as well. And again, there are a gazillion cooperation signal possibilities, and it depends on what we want to do with the dog. It depends on the situation. It depends on what the dog likes or can do, and all those things. So you can, again, get very creative and very picky with whatever you like to do and whatever you like your dog to show. And there is something else we can do whenever we see our dog getting a little bit scared, but not as intensely, is that we just praise him. We cannot increase fear with something nice. Okay? So whenever our dogs are, for example, getting a little insecure outside because they smell something weird or there was a sound or whatever, we can praise them. We can also mark and reward with whatever. So if the dog can still eat or still play or still do stuff with us, we can use that. If not, we can praise the dog. And if the dog gets startled outside or inside even, the most important thing is that we are fast. We, in the best case, mark exactly or directly after whatever's scaring the dog. So, for example, there is a shot, mark and reward. instantly. And if the dog doesn't want to eat, that's fine. Praise him and mark again, praise again, mark again, praise again, until he can do something else. It does not increase the fear response, because for that to work, the dog would have to want to be afraid. And no dog would ever want to be afraid. So what it does is it changes the dog's feeling about this, because we are adding positive emotions that are connected to the sound of the marker signal or our praise. Okay? So we are adding something positive for the dog, even if we are not seeing any change in the dog. This is very important. Sometimes we don't see the change immediately, and it can get a little frustrating for us. And sometimes we might think that this isn't working, or we start pitying the dog because he's such a poor dog and he's so afraid. And that's normal. But some things just take time. And while positive reinforcement is something that will work very, very quickly, even for fearful dogs, some things still take time, and quickly means very different things for very different situations. So sometimes we really need patience, especially for fearful dogs. And this is where help from the outside and somebody to support us can really make a difference. All right? So why don't you tell me in the comments if you have ever trained a fearful dog with positive reinforcement and what you did. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you are helping more people see the podcast and get help this way as well. I would love for you to do so. And that's it. I wish you an amazing Christmas, because we are actually in Christmas week, and sometimes Christmas can get scary for dogs. So this is where we can take a step back, watch out for calmness, peace and quiet, and try to help our dogs as much as we can. Have an amazing Christmas. See you next week. Bye.